Hi everyone, this is Sophia, and today I will just be giving you a quick overview of using Perseus's Scaife viewer. So I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with the Perseus website as it currently exists. This is something that pretty much everyone has used at some point, or at least is familiar with. But what I have noticed many people do not know is there is actually a new and improved version of the Perseus reader that's currently being populated with text, and that is the Scaife viewer. So this is the homepage of the Scaife viewer. You can see it's pretty much the Perseus we know and love, but kind of given a facelift for 2021. So currently the work is ongoing to migrate all of the text that currently live on Perseus into the Scaife viewer. So you may notice that not every text you're looking for is on the Scaife viewer already. Even though it might seem inconvenient to go back and forth between two different interfaces, I think that Scaife is enough of an improvement that if the text that you want is available on Scaife, it is much easier and much cleaner to use than the sort of OG Perseus. So if we are in the original Perseus, we're just going through here, we're looking for our authors. Let's go to Euripides Medea. You can see we have a Greek version and an English version. We'll click on the Greek version, and this is the page that we get. So if you're doing the same thing in Scaife, you can either go to Browse Library or Text Search. So the library is pretty similar to the original library. It's just a list of texts, the language that they're in, the list of authors. So yeah, it looks pretty much like this. But you can also search and say, we want Medea. And here it shows us, here is Euripides Medea. And when you hover over Medea, you can see instead of it being listed twice, there's Greek and there's also English. So we are going to click on Greek just for the sake of comparison. And here you can see this is what you get when things first arise. So let's make sure that I'm on actual size. Okay, yes. So you can see I tend to zoom in because my brain does not look like looking at the tiny text. But if you want to see the text formatted more conventionally, when you move into actual size, this is what you will see. And you can see here, we're viewing lines 0 to 29. And then this is a bunch of different information about the text. So you can open and close all of this. If you don't want to be looking at attributions or CTS-URN, you can just close those. You can also change the text size on the side here. So do you want it really small? Do you want it much bigger? Do you want it, the text width doesn't work on the Greek text, but if you're reading a Latin text, you can control that. And then the other thing you'll notice here is text mode normal and text mode highlight. So text mode normal is good if you would like to copy and paste a text. Something that I'm sure you've all experienced if you're copying and pasting from Perseus is you have to remember to paste without formatting, or you get a million hyperlinks to each word. Instead of each word being hyperlinked and you click on it to open this new tab with different information, instead in Scaife, you just move into highlight mode and say you want to look at this verb, what's going on with this verb. If you scroll down, you can see the morphology. And so yes, it gives you all of that. And then it also gives you a definition. So this is really handy. It's pretty much the same functionality as Perseus. It's just a little bit quicker. So yeah, you can see you can click on all sorts of different things. One thing to keep in mind when you are reading is that Perseus does not like elisions or anything like that. So if you have here, you can see it doesn't recognize this as being a participle because it doesn't have that final vowel. So that's something you'll just have to keep in mind. It's not perfect, but it's not a change from the original version of Perseus. You can, click around as usual. You can also go to any different line in the passage, so in the text. So say you want to go to 250 to 350 and read those lines. You can put that in and get that pulled up. This is a functionality I use a lot. Sometimes I'll say, oh, I need to read 30 lines right now, or I need to read 90 lines before the end of today. So I'll just pull up the whole passage and work on that. And so that is pretty great. Some other things to note, you can see here, you can add a parallel version. For those of us who do not have institutional Loeb access, this is our sort of free open source DIY Loeb. So if you would like to have a side-by-side Greek edition and English translation, you can do that. You can't have more than 2 texts open at a time, but if you would like to, then that is something you're welcome to do. You'll also notice sometimes in Scaife, text will have multiple English translations or multiple Greek editions. So something you may want to do is have multiple editions open at the same time or multiple translations. Let's see if we can find an example. So yeah, you can see here off to the side has Greek and English, Greek, English. Let's see if we can find one with 2 Greek texts. I know there's probably some in this Plutarch. Oh, here we go. So yes, if we want to look at sayings of the Spartans, then we can read multiple Greek texts. So yes, if you want to have 2 editions open side by side to see if there's any variations, you can do that. You can also have open 2 translations, and you can compare translations side by side. And yes, it will tell you what is open. And so that's really interesting. If there's any notes in the text, they'll come up as this little asterisk. Another thing to note is sometimes when you're reading a text in the word list, it'll give you a list of definitions for all of the words it recognizes on the page. So let's see, I know it definitely does this in the Argonautica. But if you come down here to the word list, it's actually giving you a word list of all of the words it recognizes on the page. And it doesn't do this for every work, but for the works where it does do it, I find it really helpful. This is a great starting point if you're wanting to study vocabulary. You can use this word list that's automatically generated by Perseus to make flashcards or just to review when you're going in and starting to translate. So that's something that I personally find useful. Something else you can do is export passage as text or XML. So if you just want to have something that's really easy to copy and paste, it doesn't have any formatting, so it doesn't work as well for verse, but for prose is really helpful. And they also have the XML coding available. So if you're someone who wants to write some code and you want to, do something with the XML, you can do that. So yes, that's pretty much how that works with the Greek text. I'll also just show a Latin text for those of you who would like to see one of those. Let's see, who should we look at? Let's look at Catullus. So for Catullus, and you can see when you click on Catullus's Carmina, you get edition, translation, translation, and then the information from the translations. So we would like to look at the edition. And yes, here it's showing us poem 1, lines 1 through 10. One thing you'll notice that is inconvenient about Latin, and I will say that Scaife Viewer is much better for if you're reading Greek, is when you go into highlight mode, it doesn't give you the morphological information. So I will say I mostly would recommend using Scaife Viewer for Greek rather than for Latin, just because this is a little bit annoying. It's also something that if you don't mind having another tab open and looking up words in a different program, then you can do that. It's just not ideal. Yes, and you can see, yeah, you can say, see, I want poem 22 and put that in, and it will give you the whole of poem 22. So yes, it's definitely something that's worth playing around with. I'm not going to go into some of the other sort of more advanced things. These are just really, really basic. Another thing that's kind of interesting is if you want sort of a content-based commentary on Homer, Greg Naj's commentary that he wrote for the CHS is embedded in the Scaife edition. So yes, let's just go to the Iliad edition. So there is a functionality to have commentary embedded in. It just hasn't been put into all of the text yet, but it is something that if you want to play around with, if you are reading Homer, Greg Naj's commentary that he wrote is in here, and that's kind of interesting and fun. But I would definitely recommend playing around with Scaife Viewer, trying it out, using it for your Greek text, because once you kind of get used to it, I think it's just so much more user-friendly than the original Perseus. But yeah, hopefully this quick overview was useful for you, and hopefully you can find some use for this tool in your own work and in your own translating.